Hello, and welcome to the Quest for Games. I'm Jerry, and in this video, I'm going to do a how to play of the 2 to 6 player game Reavers of Midgard by Gray Fox Games. In Reavers of Midgard, the card game, you are the master of your own longship with a small but loyal crew by your side. You set out to gain glory and become the most renowned Reaver of Midgard. Recruit Vikings to man your ships, raid villages, towns, and castle keeps. Collect the spoils of victory as you hurry the Nordic coastline. But be mindful of your reputation, because if you become too terrifying, no one will follow you. So what does all that mean? It's basically a set collection game that you're landing on different spaces to try to gain resources. There will be a set of locations in front of you. You'll land your person on that location, hoping that nobody else lands on the same location. And then based on the location you land on and the features of that location, you will collect resources. And then at the end of the game, you're basically totaling up the number of sets and the kind of resources you have to gain victory points. As I said, I kickstarted this. Nobody's paying me to do this video. It wasn't a free copy or evaluation copy. So all the opinions that you see in this video are mine and mine alone. I did kickstart it with the intentions of trying to find a more portable version of Reavers of Midgard, but it's not really the same. There's a few pieces that are kind of the same as Reavers of Midgard, but it's really not the same game. It's got the same veneer of its Vikings, and it has some of the same resources, but that's about all the more that I could put as a comparison. And I'll talk about that more in my final thoughts, I guess. So with all that said, let's get this to the table and start the setup. Hello, and welcome to the table. I'm going to set up Reavers of Midgard, the card game, for a 3-player game. There is a variant to set up for 2 players. It sets up almost exactly the same as this 3-player. Basically, you wind up using the 3rd player's marker or ship to make it so that one of the locations is always tied up. And I'll kind of show you that here in a minute. So the first thing that has to be done for setup is players have to pick the clan that they want to be. I have picked the Boar clan, the Bear clan, and the Wolf clan for these 3 players. Each player will take their ship, their victory point marker, a deck of cards, their victory point tracker, and this screen, which I will show you the other side of that in just a minute. All right, after you pick your player, what clan you're going to play, you'll take your victory point tracker, which is the symbol for your clan. So a boar, a wolf, and a bear here. And you'll put that on the 0 spot of the victory point tracking board. You set up your screen, and let me put that in the close-up camera for a second and give you a better view of what there is there. It's basically a player aid that tells you the game rounds, then talks about endgame scoring and negotiations. I'll leave this showing the player rounds so that when we get to the rules teach, you'll have that. But each person sets up their little screen. For all games, you set out the Rockslide tile, and I'm probably slaughtering that name. And then for a 3-player game, we have to set out Bjorgensvin, Townsburg, Nidaros. Those are the 3 extra ones we're supposed to set out above and beyond Rockslide, which is the one you always start with. There's a set of cardboard tiles that go in the middle. There's an A side, which you can see in the one corner, and a B side, which you can see in the other corner. You set them all out on the A sides. And here's the beginning of one of my kind of complaints of the game. These tiles don't tell you which board they're supposed to go on. You're supposed to look at the background of the tile and realize that that picture in the background of the tile is the same as the picture that's on this tile, and match them up. They already put an A there. It would have been nice if they would have put there's a 1, 2, 3 on these cards and a P on this card. Well, but this one's easy to figure out. But it would have been nice if they put the names on here. So we'll put out the resources. These are farms. These are walls. So there's a farm. There's a wall. There's a tower. And there's a fear token. So we set out all the resource tokens in an area so that everybody can grab them. Then we set the coins out similarly in a place where everybody can get to them. There's a gold and silver coin. Then we have this deck, which is the Reaver deck. They have cards that look like that in them. You shuffle that up. You're supposed to set it over here next to Roxdale and flip over the first 3 Reaver cards. Then we shuffle up this deck, which is the Spoils deck, and they look like that. Shuffle this deck up and place it somewhere out in an area where everybody can get to it. Then we have these supply cards. You're supposed to shuffle them up, take 2, and return 2 back to the deck, which should leave you with 10. And these are basically the rounds. I'll give you a better look at the back sides. And I'll have to show you the front sides during the teach, but there's a front side. Flip the first one, and this will tell you how to set those up, but I'm going to wait for that until we start the rules. This is my player token. It's a sword, and you're supposed to give this to the player who was most recently victorious in battle. I don't know who that is. We usually just roll a dice, but we'll give that to you. Then we have this weapons dice, which we have to put out. Everybody has access to it. And with that, we're set up and ready to play Reavers of Midgard, the card game. Let's begin starting to talk about how to play, the rules. I missed during setup, there's supposed to be 4 Reavers out here, and I only did 3, so I fixed that. First thing we have to do at the beginning of a turn is flip over one of these cards that's in the supply deck. And let's take a look at what this card looks like a little bit closer up. So this card's saying that we need to put out a coin for every card that has a coin on it. We put that value of coins out. We have to put out a spoils card. That's what that's saying, which is one of these cards for every area. If the area has a farm, like this one does, then we put out a farm. If the area has walls, we put walls out. So I'm glad this card came up because this is saying we have to discard 2 of the Reaver cards. Choose these 2 cards and they're being discarded. We have to play with only these 2 because that came up on the card. And then this last symbol down here, locations flip. Well, if we had any ships on any of these locations, then we'd have to flip this to its B side. In the first turn, there's nobody out there, so we don't flip anything. So let's go through and do that based on what's on this card. First thing it says is coins. So this city gets, or this town gets 1, this town gets 2, this town gets 2. If this showed 2 coins on it, then I would give out 2 here, 4 here, and 4 here. It also says anybody who has one of these spoils of wars gets a spoil of war card. So we flip over a spoil of war card for each location because each one of them has a spot, or each one of them has the symbol of the spoils of war. Then any one of them that has a farm, we put a farm on. This is the only one that has the farm on it. Anyone that has a wall, we put a wall on. So we put a wall on these 2. And now we're set up. Just while we're talking about this card and these setup, some of these cards in the deck will have a tower symbol on them. And when that tower symbol is on there, that's when you put the towers out on the cards that have towers. Otherwise, they don't go out. And if you notice, this one has the 2 gold at the top. So we'll be given 2 gold 4 gold and 4 gold. It also says get rid of 2 Reaver cards. So now we have all the supplies that are out that are due, and we've reduced our Reaver deck by what this card's telling us to do. Each deck of cards has each one of the locations on it. So each player puts out 1 card from their location deck to say that's the location they're trying to go to. And then at the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, all players flip their location card. So we have the boar wants to go to Toomsburg, so their ship's going there. We have the bear wanting to go to Bajorvin. Slaughtering these names, I'm so sorry. And the wolf wants to go to Nagaris, so that's where the wolf went. Nobody went to the same spot. If 2 players had decided they wanted to go to the same town, we would have to put a terror out here on that town and then negotiate who gets what resource. But since each player went to a different spot, each player will pull their resources off of that card. So the bear puts theirs behind their screen. The boar would have put theirs behind that screen, and the wolf would put theirs behind their screen. And so then now we've got resources. We're going to do what the cards say. So we'll start with the first player, which happens to be over here. Their tile says they can spend 3 gold to remove 1 terror. Well, they don't have any terror, so they're not going to be able to do that. The bear will take their turn, and they could sell a farm, a wall, or a tower for a certain amount of gold. Well, they have a farm, so they're going to go ahead and sell their farm for the 2 gold, or for the 2 money. It's hidden behind the screen. I'm going to take the screen out of the way. They have more money. It's supposed to be hidden behind the screen. Nobody's supposed to know what they have. That's supposed to be hidden information. So the wolf could take a terror token and get 1 more spoils card. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to take their terror token and get another spoils card. So that's a basic turn. Then we have to get set up for the next turn. So we slide all the Reavers over and we flip over to refill this market so that we have 4 Reavers. We flip the next card, and then we put resources out into the spots. And if you remember, the last one said we'd flip locations if there was a ship on it. Well, we don't have that one on this card. What happens with this card is we'll put 2 money there. We'll put 4 money here because it's got 2. We'll put 4 money here again because it has 2. Next thing is we put out farms. So this spot has a farm. Then we put out a tower. This spot has a tower. And the first one has a tower. So we put towers out. Then we have to again remove 2 Reaver cards. So we remove the 2 Reaver cards. There's only 2 in the marketplace. And we're now ready to take our turns. You left this, the last one that you used, face up because you can't go to that location again this turn. You have to go to a new location. So each person would pick a card, and we would go 1, 2, 3, flip our cards, and the way these came out, we have the wolf and the boar going to Rosslide, and we have the bear going to Tomsburg. So then, because the bear went to Tomsburg, we have them taking all the money that was on there. And these 2 players are now taking turns trying to figure out who wants to do what. We passed the first player token, sorry. First player token is now the bear. Doesn't matter. Then in turn order, the wolf would be next. So the wolf gets to go first. The wolf could take a terror and buy one of these Reavers at the cost that's on the card. And they're deciding to pass on that. The next action they could take is spend 1 gold to refill that. They don't want to do that either. they'll spend the 2 gold to get rid of the terror that they have. Then it's the boar's turn. So the boar will take a terror, spend the 1 gold or 1 money, and take this Reaver. And that'll give us an opportunity to talk about what the Reavers do. So let's pause the game, or pause and talk about this Reaver. This Reaver tells them that anytime they land on a space that is occupied by somebody else, they get a gold. So they will keep that Reaver with them, and it'll activate anytime that condition happens. This Reaver doesn't have any special conditions at the bottom, but this one gives you 2 victory points of that clan, where this one gave you 1 victory point of that clan. If the poor had both of these somehow at the end of the game, they would multiply the 1 and by the 2, and they would wind up with 2, unfortunately. But they would have 2 glory. Eventually, you'll have more Reaver cards, so that multiplication will be higher. So then it would be back to the wolf's turn. The wolf decides they don't want to do anything else. Then it's back to the boar's turn again. The boar decides they're going to go and spend another money and buy the farm. Now, you can't do an action item on here twice. You can only do it once. So you can't pick up the fear and get another card. That one's already been used. They're both going to say, I'm done. I'm not going to do anything else. We keep doing this back and forth until we're done with all the cards in this deck. I fast forwarded a little bit to the end of the game. This pile's completely flipped over. Players just took their turns and we placed the ships. We're going to do this last turn together, and then we're going to figure out final scoring. So the first player right now is the boar. The boar went here. So we have to put, because there's 2 players here, the boar and the bear on this spot. So there's a terror token there. So now the boar and the bear have to negotiate. The first part of the negotiation could go like this. Let's just split it down the middle. The bear will take 2 coins and 1 card, and the boar takes 2 coins and 1 card. But then who takes the fear token? So then the bear says, well, okay, I'll take the fear token if I get both of the cards. Bear doesn't have any fear. The boar has 2 fear. And if he takes that fear, you'll see 1, 2, 3 fear. He's got to take a -6. So he doesn't want that. It's going to give him 3 more of, -3 more. So he decides, okay, I'll take that deal. So the boar takes the 2 money. The bear gets the 2 money, the fear token, plus all the spoils. Then it's the wolf's turn, and the wolf can go down their track. The wolf is going to take that fear to be able to buy one of these 2 cards. Right now, they have 2 of the hammers and 1 of the helms. And so that would give them basically 2 victory points. But if they can get one of these 2, they would be able to get 2 of the helms, which would give them 3 helms times 2. So they're going to spend the 4 coins and buy this one. Even though they give them nothing on the bottom, they're going to take this one because it's going to give them more victory points at the end. They don't want to flip that. They do have one of their people that gives them something for farms. They get 2, score 2 for each farm. So as you can see, a coin at the end of the game is only worth half a victory point. So they're going to spend 1 coin to buy that 1 farm. It's on the wrong side. Walls aren't for sale. The reason why they may have wanted to buy a wall is if you look at this final scoring, it says if you got a complete set, you get 4 glory plus what each one of them's worth. And this is what they currently have. Well, if 1 more wall would give them a second complete set to give them 4 more glory. But unfortunately, this particular side of this tile, they can't buy a wall. And then the last thing on there is they could pay 4 coins to get rid of a fear and then give a fear to a player of their choice. Thinking again about endgame scoring, they only have one fear. That's only one victory point. Spending 4 coins, they lose half a victory point for each coin. So 4 coins, just lost 2 victory points to get rid of this one fear, which only costs me one. So in the wash, it's not a good choice for the wolf. So that's it. The wolf's done with their turn. So everybody's done with their turns. So now it's time for end game scoring. So before I completely go into end game scoring, there's one other thing we need to talk about. The wolf has a few of these cards, spoils cards, that have the axes on them. They had to roll this dice on their turn, and that would have given them a fear. This would give them another spoils card. That does nothing. So they've rolled those dice and they've gotten the spoils or the nothing or the fear based on their, every time they picked up one of the axes or weapons, they have to roll the weapon dice to see what happens to them. We're going into final scoring now. Let's score the Bears' final score first. So the first thing we're supposed to score is the resources they have. The bear didn't get as many sets. So they have 2 farms, which is worth 2 points. They have 3 walls, which is worth 6 more. So they're at 8. Then they have a 1 tower, which is worth 3. So they're at 11. And they have 1 set, a farm, a tower. A farm, a wall, and a tower. So that's worth 4 more. So they're at 15 victory points when they're done with their resources. But they have this one card that says they score 2 victory points for each tower. So they get 2 more victory points. So they're at 17. They're at 17 victory points. The next thing we're supposed to do is their spoils cards. They have 5 treasure spoils cards. Well, unfortunately, 4 is the max for 1 set. So they get 16 for those 4, and then they get 2 more for this 4. So that's 18. And then they have 1 tapestry card, which is only worth 2. So they're at 20. So they have 20 victory points. Then we look at their glory that they get from their Reavers. Well, they also have this glory for their Reaver that says they score 1 for each Reaver, and they have 4 Reaver cards. So that's 4 glory for those Reavers. Plus they have 3 hammer and 3 helms. So that's 3 times 3, which is 9. And then the 9 plus the 4 for the 4 cards gives them 13. So now they're at 50. So they pull out their 50 coin and they display that. Then the next thing is their glory for their money. They have 16 gold. So that's worth 8 victory points. They have, and then how many terror do they have? They have 1 terror. So they go -1 for the 1 terror. And that scores the bear. Bear wound up with 57. So let me go fast forward again and score everybody else's, and then we'll see who the final victory is. And I'll talk to you about if there's anything comes up interesting in that. Okay, so I fast forward and finish the scoring for all of them. You can see where they wound up on the track. The boar won. There were a few interesting things that I think I want to kind of bring out. The boar actually had a card, which, so I didn't play them completely correctly. One of their Reavers actually gave them a victory point for each fear that they had. So they probably would have wanted to take that fear at the end there. And they also got a victory point for every 2 spoils. So I probably would have wanted to take those spoils at the end there too. Other than that, they pretty much just scored out. There are these weapons cards, which I showed once before. That's just a raw 5 victory points at the end of the game. So they don't stack like some of the other ones do. The tapestries aren't supposed to match to get the points. So he had 2 tapestries that didn't match. So he got the points. He got more points out of that because there was only 1 tapestry for the bear. So with that, let's go to final thoughts. So final thoughts for Reavers of Midgard, the card game. Like I said in the beginning, I was really looking for a more portable version of Reavers of Midgard when I kickstarted Reavers of Midgard, the card game. It is, I guess, kind of a more portable version. It is more portable for sure, but you lose all the combat in this version. So going through that rules play, how to play, there's no combat. So no dice chucking, and that's okay. That's some of what made it more portable, right? I was looking for some kind of combat, maybe based on using the right cards or something. I don't really know. So that all set aside. So what is this game? Basically, the game is I'm trying to do set collection and I'm trying to flip a card for a location that's not the location that I went to last time and get the resources that are on that card and maybe take the actions that are on that card so that I can get my sets better to get a final score that's higher than anybody else's. In a nutshell, that's what this is. So I'm going to kind of jump into, is this game for you or not? That set collection and that I'm going to a location and trying to second guess everybody else out there to figure out what they're trying to do. If that kind of game appeals to you, then this is a good representation of that game. There are other ones that I can think of that I have that do the same, pretty much the same thing. Most of those don't have the sheer amount of resources that we have here. There's the wall, the farm, the tower. That's what most of them that I'm used to have. This one also has money, the spoil cards, and the reavers that I can go buy. So there's a lot of little pieces to collect, and there's a lot of things you can focus on. Sometimes you may want to do one strategy over another. This game lends itself to that. But if you're looking for something that I'm going to be Vikings and I'm going to war, I'm fighting monsters, like some of the other Midgard games, this one doesn't have any of that. So if that's what you're looking for, this game might not be for you. Build quality. The pieces that you saw during this teach are not the pieces I think that'll come in the retail version. They're my Kickstarter version. There will be tokens for all of these wooden pieces that I have. All of the wooden pieces that I have in this one will be all cardboard chits. I have some of the cardboard chits, and they're nice thick cardboard chits. So from that standpoint, build quality is pretty good. Their cards are kind of interesting. There's a really a kind of a plastic nature to their card, um, which means to me, I don't think I'm going to have to sleeve these because I don't think water is going to bother them. Much like some of the chip theory game stuff that I have, I don't think water is going to bother these cards. I guess we'll see. The locations that they're setting out are cardstock, but they're okay. And then this tile that tells you what actions you can take that flips, that's good quality thick cardboard. The screens are fine, they're cardstock too. So from a quality standpoint, I think the build quality is pretty good. Pretty much what I would have expected from any other kind of game. It's going to be mostly cardboard chits and cards. Let me get into a little bit of the pros and cons of the game. Pros of the game, like I said, there's a lot of different things to collect. So there's a lot of different strategies. Sometimes I may want to lean more towards trying to get the spoils of war. Other times I may want to try to lean more towards collecting my walls, towers, and farms. And some of that will have to change based on the way these cards come out, because the resource cards, when they come out, there have been some games that I've played where the towers don't seem to come out, or some tower cards came out really early on and now there's no more tower cards coming out. So doing some of that, trying to build my farm walls and towers, there's a that can be a little risky kind of a strategy, but you get 4 extra points for that, so it's a strategy. The fact that my Reaver cards have things that they can do on them also makes it so that, oh, I might have to change my strategy in the middle of the game. All those things to me are positive, gives me something else to look at, and while I'm playing the game, makes me think about, oh, wait, I thought my strategy was going to be X, but my strategy may have to change based on the Reavers that I picked up or based on the town type things, walls, towers, farms that I've picked up. I have to kind of pay attention to what my opponents are doing because what they're doing is hidden to me. I don't get to look over at them and say, "Oh, you're collecting farms, walls, and you need towers. I'm going to try to block you from getting the towers." They, I can't see what they have unless I'm remembering everything of what they picked up. I don't know what they're looking for. Again, a pro to me, so I'm not trying to just block my opponent. I have to play my own game. One con, and I think that's mainly the only con that I have for the game, is these action tiles and how they go down. You have to look at the tile and figure out, oh, based on what's the graphic on the town, this is the tile for that town. There is something in the book that I found that kind of tells you what each town thing does. So you can then go look through them in the book and go back and reference those. But that means I got to look at the book every time I set it up. Not a big con, but it's a con to me. Okay, so scoring. Doing a 1 to 10 scale, I would put this at a 7. If you have Reavers of Midgard, the regular game, I don't know that this is a game that you need to get. If you don't have Reavers of Midgard, this isn't a bad game, and it's probably going to be cheaper. It just doesn't have the combat in it. If you like the trying to figure out what town I'm going to go to and flipping my card to say this is the one that I'm going to, and I'm not allowed to go to the same one twice, if you like that mechanic, it's a good game with that mechanic. It's probably right now probably my favorite with that mechanic, but it doesn't have the same impact in my mind as Reavers of Midgard. So that's why it's a 7. So that's about all that I have. Thank you if you stayed with me this long. If you have stayed with me this long and you found that this video was helpful, please like the video. And if you think that the things that I'm doing are things you like, please subscribe to my channel. And with that, I hope you keep playing games, and I'll see you next time. Bye.